Hello everyone, the Premier League has a new set of financial rules for all teams to follow. It's called Profit and Sustainability, and in fact, 2 clubs have already been charged with breaching these rules. But what is PSR and who are the clubs involved? Today we are going to dive in. If you are new to the channel, please make sure that you subscribe, you like the video, and you turn on those notifications because it really does help me out. But now, let's get into it. So what are the Premier League's profit and sustainability rules? What is PSR? Well, generally it is a financial restriction the Premier League are putting on clubs to stop them from essentially overspending. It's a rule that states that no club can post a loss greater than £105 million over 3 years prior to the season that's being investigated. So in this case, they're investigating the seasons 22-23, the seasons 21-22, and the seasons 20-21. And it means that essentially they can't post a loss greater than £105 million across those 3 years. It sounds pretty straightforward, but as this article states, it's not. The clubs can only lose £15 million over those 3 years, and that's £15 million of their own money. That's an essential point, their own money. Doesn't mean that that's the only amount that they can lose, but it's the only amount the club themselves can put out. This is put up against the likes of their incoming, their money that comes in from TV payments, season tickets, selling players, and so on and so forth. Remember, £105 million per 3 years. And the other 90 million, remember that the club can only put out £15 million of their own money. The other 90 million of the 105 must be guaranteed by the owners by buying up shares and essentially bankrolling the club. Now that we have a general idea on what the PSR is, we're going to be talking about the actual clubs involved currently. And the Premier League have stated that Everton and Nottingham Forest have breached their PSR rules. Now, I'm not going to go through this entire statement, I'm not going to go through everything in it, but Everton and Nottingham Forest have each confirmed, they haven't confirmed, the Premier League have actually charged them, that they are in breach of the Premier League's profit and sustainability rules. This as a result of sustaining losses above the permitted thresholds which every club agreed to. In accordance with Premier League rules, both cases have now been referred to the chair of the judicial panel, who will appoint separate commissions to determine appropriate sanctions. Now, as I said, I'm not going to go through all of this. There is an interesting point though, and I just want to note this right here. Due to Nottingham Forest spending 2 seasons in the Championship within the 3-year assessment period, the maximum loss for the club is £61 million. Now, that is a dwindled amount from 105. It's just a huge lessening of the amount that they're able to lose. The flexibility for them is almost non-existent, and when you're talking about teams being promoted into the Premier League from the Championship, they already have a mountain to climb, and now you're telling them that they can't spend arguably their own money, which is pretty horrendous. Now let's talk about how the rules are going to be imposed. The profit and sustainability rules are going to be imposed as follows. January 15th, any charges are confirmed and the clubs have 2 weeks to respond. The 2 clubs that have been charged are obviously Nottingham Forest and Everton. On April 5th, the hearings must be completed. April 12th, the decision must be provided. Clubs have then 7 days, I should say, to appeal any decision. May 19th, the Premier League season will end, and May 24th, a mere 5 days later, appeals must be concluded. Premier League are trying to ramp up the amount of charges they give because people have been complaining that their previous charges have taken too long. In fact, Manchester City have currently 115 charges from the Premier League being investigated, and that has been going over for at least 1 year. So they take a good amount of time to be able to deal with any kind of situation, but in this case they're trying to speed up the process, and with Everton and Nottingham Forest case they're really trying to speed it up. Everton have been deducted 10 points already this season though. Last November of this 23-24 season, Everton were deducted 10 points for again a breach in the Premier League's profitability and sustainability rules. The club are appealing the severity of that punishment because the Premier League haven't actually stated what the punishment means per breach. They haven't explained what punishment goes for what kind of claim. It depends on the amount of money, I would imagine. It would depend on different circumstances. The Premier League haven't been transparent in this, and it's actually getting quite concerning. The Premier League have said that the two clubs have been charged after sustaining losses, but they haven't actually explained the punishments, and that's a bit of a problem. We'll move on and have a look at the Premier League table, because if Everton were docked another 10 points for breaching the rules yet again, they'd only be on 7. And at that point, is it particularly fair on the club? Is it particularly fair on the workers at the club? Everyone involved, the playing staff, Sean Dyche, everyone involved with the club. Is it particularly fair that they are deducted yet another 10 points? Nottingham Forest, is it fair that they are deducted 10 points? Will they be deducted 10 points? The Premier League have failed to clarify any of this, and yet they're handing out breaches like it's nothing. I'm now going to show you a excerpt, or I suppose a posting from Steve Rotherham, who is the Labour representative for Liverpool, and he says that the Premier League's announcement today means that Everton Football Club potentially face being penalised twice within the same season, and he's not wrong. The club is essentially facing double jeopardy. I have supported Everton in their appeal so far because I have grave concerns about the transparency of the process and the severity of the penalty being applied. The punishment does not fit the crime. It's not about one club, but ensuring that our game is open and fair in its treatment of all the clubs. It is difficult to see how anybody can have any confidence in a process as opaque as this. The Premier League have not been transparent whatsoever, and like the EFL or other sporting leagues around the world, the Premier League has not published a framework for sanctions. They haven't explained what sanctions are going to be imposed. They've just given Everton that 10-point deduction and then nothing else. What else is going to be following this? How will Nottingham Forest be charged? How will Everton be charged? What will the punishment be? Nobody knows. The Premier League have not disclosed this information, and that's where things start to get a little bit iffy. Until that is rectified, the fairness and transparency of the whole process will be called into question, and I'm doing that right now. I don't know what this means for Everton. I don't know what this means for Nottingham Forest. Nobody does, really. Only the Premier League can answer these questions, and I'd argue that before you start handing out breaches and handing out charges, you need to explain to clubs what the penalties are for them breaking these rules. And just to notify on that double jeopardy, Everton were punished for the previous year. They were punished for the 21 and 22 year season, and then that went back to the 2021 season. So if they were in breach of that, why are they being charged again when their figures have been disclosed once more? Everton are arguing that they have actually paid the penalty for 75% of the charges. And in fact, the Premier League have already disclosed that they're planning to change these current rules in August. So my question is, what is going on? Are the Premier League just trying to get a foothold onto their finances and onto their team's finances, because there is a looming question about an independent regulator that some clubs might be in for, some clubs might not be, but it takes the power away from the Premier League, and it takes the just general overhaul of this entire thing away from the powers that currently be. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? We don't know, but it's something different. And judging by the way the Premier League are acting, being opaque with the way they're dealing with some of this, and the way that they're just going about their certain business, it makes you wonder whether an independent body to come and deal with all of this is necessary. The Premier League claim that they can do it by themselves, but Manchester City have 115 charges labelled against them, and yet the Premier League are too busy charging Everton again, charging Nottingham Forest, but we've heard nothing about these charges for a full year. I want to know what's going on with everything. My point is, if you're going to start charging Everton, if you're going to start punishing Everton and giving them a 10-point deduction, if you're going to start charging Nottingham Forest and giving out these new rules, giving out these new charges and giving out these new punishments, and yet Manchester City sit here with 115 charges, it just looks a little odd. Man City could be innocent, but the question mark will always be there. Why have they not been investigated further? Why has it taken nearly 10 years for the Premier League to wise up? Why are Everton and Nottingham Forest being labelled as the priority when this has been going under the Premier League's nose for the last decade? These questions need to be answered, and before we take these new rules seriously, I think the Premier League has a duty to be able to tell everyone what on earth is going on. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you agree with these new profit and sustainability rules? Do you think that clubs should be able to spend their own money? Or do you think that this is a new healthy step going forwards for the Premier League? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learnt something new, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, my friends, take care.